Once a month, Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast, answers voicemail questions the listeners send in. Here's one now.
Hey, Paula, this is Rachel. I live in general in the Ozarks area of the country, and I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and it has inspired me to consider investing in some real estate in this area, and I'm finding a pretty affordable price around here and a good cap rate. My concern has to do with the property management companies. The reviews for all the property management companies that I've looked at online are consistently awful. And I'm concerned that without that piece in place, anything else I do is going to be an epic failure. So I guess my question is, how do you go about vetting a property management company? And if there is not a good one in the area, apparently, do you scrap that area and move on to a different one? Or what do you do? I guess that's my main question for now. Thanks so much.
Rachel, I am so glad you asked this question for a couple of reasons. Number one, I freaking love the Ozarks. That is like such a beautiful part of the country. I have often believed, sorry, quick tangent, I swear this is only going to take 2 sentences. I have long believed that the Ozarks is one of the most underrated, underappreciated, beautiful areas of the country. The Ozarks and the southwestern U.S., like southern Utah, northern Arizona, just gorgeous. And for all of those of you who are listening who are like, hey, what parts of the country do you recommend? Where can we find good cap rates? Where can we find good returns? I've never personally looked at the Ozarks, but, if what you're saying is right, and I'm sure it is, wow, that would be a sweet place to invest. It would be great to have an excuse to go there, make that a tax write-off. So anyway, to your actual question, which is everything going to suck if I can't find a good property manager? Yes. Everything is going to suck if you can't find a good property manager. But don't worry, Rachel, I believe you can. So the reason that I'm really glad that you're asking that question is because implicit in your question is the understanding that you are as good as the team that you build. Your business will do as well as the weakest member of your team allows it to, which is why you always want to hire people who are as good as you or ideally better. For this podcast, Steve and Aaron are the glue that hold it together. I am totally the weak link. And I am so glad I have them because without them, this thing would have crashed and burned like ages ago. These people are incredible. And I attribute a lot of my success to how awesome the people I've hired are. My contractor, I like him so much, I send a Christmas present to his dog every year. So, yes, Rachel, what I love about your question is that you understand the importance of putting together a good team. And you did something very smart, which is that you read reviews of property management companies in your area. That's an excellent way, for the sake of anybody else who's listening who's wondering how to evaluate property managers. That is an excellent way to do so. Now, there are a couple of things to bear in mind. Number one, when you are online, let's say you're on Yelp or any other website, you're reading reviews of property management companies, those reviews will naturally skew towards bigger companies. If there is a mom and pop property management service that only manages a small handful of properties, and let's say that many of the properties they manage are single family homes, they may not show up within those search results because just sampling bias. They're a mom and pop company and they only have a few units versus a large company that manages major 200 unit apartment complexes. Sampling bias says they're going to show up in those search results a lot more. So the first thing I would say to you is if you are looking through these reviews and you're not finding a company that gets good reviews, it may be that the way in which you are conducting the search inherently weeds out some of the smaller companies that could be a good fit for you. In fact, a mom and pop management company is, in many cases, not all the time, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but could be a better fit for an individual investor, such as yourself. It's kind of like, okay, analogy here. You know when you're in college and you go to career fairs, and at the end of it, you get really disheartened because you've walked around to every booth at this career fair and absolutely nobody is hiring for your major? I had that experience a lot my junior and senior year, and then I realized the types of companies that get booths at career fairs are the companies that need to hire in volume. A small business owner who is hiring employee number 2 or employee number 3 is not going to have a booth there. A newspaper that has 1 or 2 openings for a reporter is not going to have a booth there. It's only the large companies that are hiring en masse that are represented in those types of environments. And it took me months to figure that out and to realize that the problem wasn't just my major. The problem was that I was searching in the wrong places. I was not going to where my target audience, which in this case would be somebody who would hire me, would be at. So when you read online reviews of property management companies, the same thing might be happening. You're seeing the companies that manage the huge apartment complexes and not the companies that manage the little duplex next door. One thing that you can do is Google REIA, Real Estate Investors Association, plus the name of your city or town or municipality, whatever it is that people call your area, and look for an in-person meetup of real estate investors. When you go to their meetings, you'll be able to talk to people face-to-face, and many of them will be able to recommend property management companies that they work with. A lot of the people who go there are other individual investors who may have 2 or 3 or 4 units and who very much are looking for the same services and have the same needs that you do. Another way to find other investors in your area is just head to meetup.com, see if there are landlording meetups or real estate investor meetups. And again, when you go there, ask for recommendations for property management companies. Another thing you can do is go to npma.org. And I'm going to put that link in the show notes. Show notes are available at affordanything.com/episode 90. Everything that I talk about in this episode, any resource that I mentioned will go into those show notes. So affordanything.com/episode 90. Now, NPMA.org, that is the National Property Management Association. It is an industry group for professional property managers. And another related group is called NARPM.org. It's the National Association of Residential Property Managers. What you can do is go to those websites, look up who are the property managers in your area who have sufficient initiative and sufficient career-mindedness that they volunteer for or join or even take volunteer leadership positions in these industry groups. Because as a general rule of thumb, the industry professionals who care enough about their job that when they're not working, they would go take a volunteer leadership position in an industry group so that they can become better at their job, they are, as a generalized rule of thumb, more likely to be good at what they do. Now, that said, it doesn't always work out that way. I once found a property manager through exactly what I just outlined. I went to the NARPM website. I found the name of a property manager who had a volunteer leadership position there. And you know what? This was actually a lesson in hiring. I had a great initial phone call with him. I was very impressed with that particular individual, but the day-to-day of the work that he did and his company did was handled by somebody who he hired who just did not do a very good job. And so eventually I had to let that property manager go. And, and that's the other kind of component of the answer to your question is sometimes you do have to fire fast. You do have to do your due diligence, find somebody who is good, get recommendations from other investors, have a meeting with them, and hire them and try them out for a while. And you know what? If after 6 months it turns out that they suck, cut the cord, let them go, and hire somebody else. And sometimes you will have to do a few iterations of that before you find the right person. With my property management, that's exactly what happened. I had to fire a property manager, let him go, and now I've got a great one. And I've done the same thing with contractors too. I went through a couple of different contractors before I found the one who I've been working with for the past several years, before I found the one who's a really good fit. So sometimes, just like with any hiring in any company, you do have to go through a few rounds of hiring and firing. But all that being said, I definitely believe that you should be able to, unless you live in a very, very, very small town where there's really slim pickings, more than likely you should be able to find somebody in your area who is awesome. So get recommendations and keep searching. Thank you so much for asking that question, Rachel, and good luck with everything.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then be sure to subscribe to Paula's YouTube channel. Not only is every podcast episode and Ask Paula question released here on YouTube, other creative deep thought videos are created just for you. Remember, you can watch anything, just not everything. Fill your YouTube viewing time with more videos to make you think and grow so you can afford anything. Go ahead, hit that little red subscribe button. We'll take care of the rest.